Welcome to a Road Less Traveled podcast. I'm your host, Hilary Haron. Today with us on our virtual edition, we have Dr. Michaelyn Thomas.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. I was going to give you your title of Space Systems Engineer. However, I would like you to give us your title and tell us what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a huge space nerd. Ever since I was very little, I always knew I wanted to work in the space industry. I wasn't sure if I wanted to become an astronaut or just work on the really cool systems that are in space. Mm-hmm. But space systems engineer is what I do. It's what I am. But at heart, I'm really a space nerd.
Okay. So what is it? What type of systems? I mean, what's going through my head is all sorts of crazy things. Because like toilet systems or like thrusters, like what is it what's your specialty?
Yes, no, that's a really excellent question. So my background is really in satellite systems and rocket systems. So there's a lot of navigational satellites that we use right here on Earth, communications, things like that. So satellite systems and also the vehicles that take those satellite systems to space. So that's essentially what I have worked on throughout my career.
That's phenomenal. You're a literal rocket scientist. I cannot say this enough. That's going to be my joke. Like, I interviewed a rocket scientist. What have you guys done?
Oh.
And you're like, well, I am a rocket scientist. So what was your path like? What was the path like to get where you're at now?
Yes, not traditional by any means. I actually started out as a liberal arts undergraduate. So I have my undergraduate degree in political science. I was actually able to leverage that degree to land my first space job.
Amazing.
Yes. So my first space job, I worked for a pretty large aerospace corporation. And I was a contracts administrator, contracts manager, and my first contract was a NASA contract. So it was really my job to look at all of the clauses, contractual jargon, how we were going to field certain space systems. And that's what I did. And that's really how I got my foot in the door. So I really did not start off as an engineer or as a scientist per se. Again, that liberal arts background really got me into the door, and I navigated financial avenues. So I have my MBA as well.
Awesome.
I also have my doctorate in organizational leadership, which is essentially the science behind running the business. And I do have my master's degree in space systems engineering. So I am a real space systems engineer, but I didn't start out with that.
What order does that go in? So you do your undergraduate and then you do a master's and then the PhD and then another master's?
That's correct. I did it that way.
Oh, girl. That's a lot of schooling. And the PhD specifically is, I don't know how yours was, but isn't it more like a really long research project?
Yes. So you have your core classes, but then you also have a lot of research that you have to do. So a part of my journey, if you will, I did publish. I do have a dissertation that we had to do. And I really focused on the underrepresentation of women in technical fields in the aerospace industry. So looking at those higher leadership levels and understanding the why that exists and what was really kind of going on there and how I could help uncover some of those things while adding to the body of literature and bolstering new ideas, new strategies for women to succeed in this particular arena.
That is freaking phenomenal. And I'm thinking 50 things again. Can you give us some real nitty gritty on that? What did your research uncover?
Yes, well, it uncovered quite a bit. I had a fairly long dissertation. However,
how long is fairly long?
It was more than 200 pages, maybe about 250, somewhere around there.
getting 200 words out of me is hard. So like 200 pages. Okay. Okay. Give us the nugget.
Sure. So it really did uncover a lot. But essentially, it really kind of starts with historical context. And how the aerospace industry really started. It started out of a critical need. And I actually live right in the middle of Space Beach, which is in Long Beach. Oh. There's a rich aerospace history here, where certain companies really emerged to respond in a defense way. And so it's really exciting to be right here. But essentially, women really entered the workforce when men went off to war. And so when men returned, a lot of the women left the workforce. By design, by not design, you name it. But it really, to me, understanding historical context is really, really important to project how we can improve in the future. So really what I did, I interviewed several women that held executive titles to understand some of their roadblocks, but most importantly, what were some of the strategies that got them to where they are today. So that was really, really important to me because as a part of my dissertation, I developed an action plan for organizations to really use and leverage to essentially get these strategies out there for women, for underrepresented persons to increase the representation. Because I truly believe that when we're talking about scientific issues, space exploration, it's really, really complex problems. You need different people looking at the same problem because that's how you're really going to innovate and how you're really going to solve some of the world's toughest problems. So that's really the basis of what my doctoral research really uncovered. I really wanted to focus on that positivity. What can I do today to navigate some of these waters that aren't so known to achieve the role that I really want to be in?
Have you seen your action plan put into place and actually function?
I have, which has been the highest honor. A couple of organizations had reached out to me via social media channels, and they really just wanted me to extend my expertise and give a little bit more context. I know that an aerospace organization actually used my research to launch a women employee resource group. And they had tangible, actionable things to increase the number of women in their spaces. A lot of folks overseas have found my research as well. And I've been asked to travel the world to have some of these talks on women empowerment objectives in the space business. So that was really cool, especially when I got to go to the Middle East to talk about these very critical things to increase representation. So not just here at home, but also worldwide.
And have you seen, this is kind of a hot topic for me, so I'm going to try to phrase this as PC as I can without being grumpy. Have you seen these programs, the diversity and inclusion, equity inclusion programs that are just kind of being thrown out there? Like, oh, well, we have this program, so we have it. And there isn't anything actionable with it. They're not actually following through with what they say they want to do. Have you experienced that or seen it in your work?
In my spaces, I have not experienced that. I have been very fortunate to work for really incredible leaders that really put the action behind understanding what the problems are and what we can do to move the needle forward. So thankfully, I've been in spaces where we've been able to bring our authentic selves to raise critical issues, but not just that, but invest in it. Like I said earlier, what we have to work on is really hard, and it takes everyone, inclusivity means everyone. So it really takes different types of skill sets, diversity of thought, different backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses. All of those things truly play a role in how we innovate and how we solve problems. So I've been very fortunate to where I've been in spaces where that was prioritized because we're looking at the mission. We're looking at what needs to be done. And we understand that if we all think the same, we're probably going to come to a similar conclusion. Maybe not, but what I like is, hey, if we have a technical problem, let's pull in a finance person. Let's get them looking at the same problem, but they're going to look at it through a different lens. And that's what I think is so cool about the aerospace industry, because it goes beyond just the science and engineering. There's so many other disciplines that make up this industry. And so that's why I feel like I've been very fortunate to where I have been that leader, but I've also worked for leaders that prioritize those differences so that we can solve these tough problems.
It's also mission critical, essentially, for you guys too. I mean, for you guys, for us, like as a society, but specifically when we're talking about space, or like you're talking about like satellites and I don't know the technical terms, so I'm not even going to try. But in order to make those things function in a way that is meaningful and useful for all of the people involved in them, I think that is phenomenal, because a lot of times those decisions have, a lot of times historically, those decisions have been made in a vacuum. So getting other people around the table. And I think it's really cool to hear that you have been fortunate enough to work for leaders that do that are inclusive, that do look outside the scope. One of the things that is like core to me is I never want to be the smartest person in the room ever. If I am, then I'm in the complete wrong room. So how do you continue learning and leveraging outside of bringing people who look at things differently than you into the room? How do you continue to grow your education, grow your knowledge, grow your career, if you will?
Yes. Hilary, I really love that, because I've always said, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room and I need to find a new room. I've always said that. So I love to hear you say that, because as leaders, it's so important that we check our ego at the door. And that is something that I really try to prioritize, because another rule of mine as a leader is I want my team to work for me, not because they have to, but because they want to. And I'm a very collaborative leader. And so I've been very fortunate to where I surround myself with people way smarter than me, because as their leader, I get to learn from them. I like to employ what's called reverse mentorship. So that's where, a less senior person, maybe a more junior or entry level person, really takes the reins and provides mentorship for someone who's more seasoned. I really welcome those sorts of dynamics and professional relationships, because that keeps me fresh. It keeps me in constant learning mode. And I love empowering my teams that I've led in the past and that I lead now to really be empowered and to learn. And I love giving them the space to fail. That is okay, because
fail forward.
Exactly. I was, again, very fortunate to have leaders that put me in leadership positions, but gave me enough room to grow and gave me enough room to learn. And that is something that is so invaluable. And, before I was a formal leader, I do believe you can lead from any chair. However, 100%. That was something that I knew that I would take forward in my leadership journey, is to ensure that the people who work for me, because I feel like we are all on the same playing field. We all have great ideas to bring to the table. It's important to me that they can feel empowered to do their job. So those are just some of the ways that I try to make space pun intended, for people at the table. I don't mind if you're an intern, if you're early career, or if you have 50 years of experience. If you're on the team, it's because you have something to add. And that's just so important to me, that every single person, regardless of level of their career, has a voice, and that they can feel that they can bring their authenticity in a safe place so that we can innovate and do really cool things.
It's super phenomenal, the way that you approach leadership. It's, as we see this transition from old school to a little bit more of a new school, if you will, way of thinking, and then being able to watch people put it into play is really super cool. Have you run into any roadblocks along the way where you've been like, oh, I'm never going to overcome this, or this person's never going to change their mind?
Yes, I have. So when I started in the aerospace industry, I was really junior and I was very young, and aerospace tends to be more seasoned. I was probably the youngest person by a couple of decades, and I was thrusted into some leadership positions. So I was really nervous, and I did feel like an imposter, because I'm thinking, how am I going to lead folks that have just years of experience on me? Thankfully, I approached things just in a very collaborative way. That's just always been, ingrained in my DNA. I'm a collaborative person by nature. I don't like to boss people around. That's not fun for me, and that's very unnatural for me. So that would be very hard. However, I did worry about fitting in, being the only woman, being the only person of color, being the only young person. And now I'm thrusted into this leadership position. So I got to really understand the team. That was really important to me. It was really important to me to really understand everyone's motivators, what they liked outside of work. And what I found was, with this core team that I led at this one particular point in my career, very, very many years ago, this team really liked to golf. And I didn't really know anything about golf. And this was one of my first leadership positions. So I took lessons. I got a set of clubs, and I met them out on the golf course, so that we could have fun outside of the office. And that really paid dividends, because it was a way for me to figure out how to fit in, and it being natural and organic, not forced. And our team dynamics were really strong. I mean, they were really, really strong. We were able to do a lot of really cool things. Now, is it our burden or our responsibility to bend every which way to fit in? Maybe, maybe not, right? However, I do think as a leader, regardless of where you are in your career, it's important to get to know your team. And I think that is a universal leadership attribute. So I try to always employ universal best practices that can be extended across every demographic in order to do the right thing and to be productive and to just have fun, because we spend so much time working. We don't want to regret our choices. We want to be able to make it worth it.
Well, and your work is heavy and important. So I can imagine that there is a point where you're like, all right, my brain is super racked. There's nothing else. It's useless now. It's useless. It needs a timeout. So we're going to do something else. And oftentimes when you do get to know people like in that way, and kudos to you for first of all learning golf, because what a frustrating sport. But to, go out there, especially as an adult, and take on something and be vulnerable and let your team see you vulnerable. I mean, the building of the bridges, the building of the relationships you build there, there's no other way to do it other than that vulnerability. I think that's incredible. Do you use other tools like one of my favorite things are, different types of personality tests that, people can say, oh, I agree or I disagree, or, oh, I never thought about it that way, to kind of evaluate. Do you use stuff like that?
Yes, actually I have. And I do find them useful, but what I find, and call me old school, is just straight up communication. It's just so important to me. One thing that I like to do is have regular tag ups or regular one-on-ones with my team, not so much to just talk about work, but to talk about what motivates you. What do you want to do in your career? How can I help you? Are you doing what you want to do? Is there something else that you want to do? I just like having those very transparent conversations with people. And I think a lot of leaders say, oh, I have an open door policy. And sometimes they're approachable and sometimes they're not. For me, it's very, very important that my team feels comfortable coming to me about their career goals, their aspirations, their objectives, especially if I can help them. So I really try to walk the walk when it comes to that. And it's because I had leaders do that for me. I had leaders get to know me, and I had leaders help me navigate pathways that I didn't even know I could create. And so that's how I always want to pay it forward. And I always want my teams to know that I am there for them, just like my leaders were there for me. And it's just, and not only that, but it builds trust. It builds camaraderie. It builds a dynamic to where now we can be open and honest with each other. And it creates a less of a heavy, I guess, environment if the stakes are high, right? So I really do try to just be old school and just have that straight up conversation and just leverage communication. And when I communicate, it's not me just talking. It's me asking questions and me shutting up and listening. I think a big piece of leadership is just being quiet and actively listening. So I really do try to do that because it's important to me to really understand and to know my team.
Are you actively mentoring anybody, or how does that work for you or in your industry? Is it you seek out a mentor, or does it just kind of happen organically?
A little bit of both, actually. So I have a lot of mentees, not folks that just work at my organization, but that work across the industry, and also a lot of students. But I also have mentors myself. And I will say that some of the relationships were formal matching, and some of the relationships were just organic. We bonded over a common interest or a common question, so to speak. So I think it really just depends. And I think it's okay that people have mentors for different things. You're going to have technical mentorship. So how can I do my job better? What resources or courses can I take to improve my engineering skills or my program management skills or so forth? But then a lot of times what I think is really beneficial is having mentors that really focus strongly on interpersonal and relationship building. And so that's where I probably spend the bulk of my time mentoring other folks. They come to me for some of the interpersonal things. However, I do technical mentorship as well. But I think, though, that I try to create and normalize a space where it's okay to ask people about the interpersonal side of our careers and our jobs. I think that that's something that's not necessarily taught in school, and it's something that's not necessarily taught on the job. It just comes with intuition and experience. And it's really easy not to pick up on certain cues because we're all human. We are complex systems ourselves. It's hard to navigate and to understand and to ingest what some of these interpersonal cues or social cues are telling us. So I try to help folks navigate those waters as well.
Especially as we're ingesting as much information as we are all the time, as technology evolves, we're inundated and we're losing some of that personal connection. So I think that is so important. I myself have abandoned the idea of balance, thrown it out. It has to be an integration. There has to be an integration. It has to work that way. And then I also have to have boundaries. How do you address, family? And I think your husband just got his doctorate, and work and kids, and how do you integrated, or are you balanced?
Well, Hilary, we are on the same wavelength here, because people have heard me say for years, I believe in work-life integration. I don't believe that there's a balance that exists, because we are all wired very differently. So my balance will look different from somebody else's balance, but it's all about that integration. And it's such a breath of fresh air to hear another powerful leader like yourself say that. Because no, it's very true. But I will say that it takes finesse and it takes practice to integrate everything.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of interests, right?
Yeah.
It just so happens that a lot of my non-career interests are still space related. So, and that's where, that integration really comes to play, right? So for instance, I run a website and I have a blog, spacedOutDoc.com, and I blog on there. I release free resources as it pertains to resume writing, interview workshops, and all of that fun stuff. And I do all of that on my own time because I'm passionate about it. So because I'm passionate about it, I'm able to kind of fill that social need. And that's just that integrative piece. Yes. And as you mentioned, my spouse, my husband, he's also in the aerospace industry. So he understands, the demand that it has on folks. It's not always operating at, 200%, but a lot of the times it is, because it's so critical. And it's just one of those areas that requires a lot of our brain power and a lot of our time. And that's why I feel like the folks who make up this industry really love what they do. And that's what really motivates me, the people. And so having a spouse that understands that, it's never an argument, it's always encouragement. Yes. It's always support, because we can empathize with our schedules. Our daughter, she's very busy. Very, very busy. And so it's nice because I don't have the mom guilt all the time. It's always about being supportive of each other's goals and aspirations. And, our goal or our rule as a family is we have to choose things that we are passionate about. That's it. Because I want the best version of my family when I come home, just like they deserve the best version of me. So that is our rule as a family. And it works. It really works. It's hard sometimes being honest with yourself and, being, and I should say, determining what brings you joy and what brings you happiness, because I think we are all shaped by societal norms. However, that is our rule. And I think that that's what helps bolsters that integration, that work-life integration. That's what bolsters that. And that's what helps, as we can go to work and give 200%. That helps because we love what we do.
I love that approach. I think that societally we have pushed off the idea that that you should get to do something that you're passionate about, like almost like it should be a struggle. And so to do that and to model that for your daughter, I think that's really, really incredible. And if we can take a little bit of a pivot, I mean, you have quite literally taken your career to space. You managed a marriage. You have more degrees than I have fingers, and you have a daughter. And you went a kind of a non-traditional route, if you will, which, since we're talking about a road less traveled, that is, you went the adoption route. How was that experience for you guys while managing your career?
Yes. So again, I don't think there's anything traditional about me. I love being unconventional, and I love exploring what scares other people. I love that because I feel like I learn so much throughout the process. So just to give you some more context, when my husband and I got married, we decided up front that we wanted to prioritize our careers. That was both very important to the both of us. And we felt that we wanted to get ourselves to a level to where we could just really enjoy what it is that we're doing. We can enjoy enjoy life, so to speak. And so probably about 8 years or so into our marriage, that's when we had decided to look at the adoption route, but not the adoption route from the sense of adopting a baby, but looking at the foster care system. That was really, really important to us. We're both researchers, and, we can research statistics like everybody else, but it was really important to us to go into that with an open mind. And I'm so glad that we did. And it was a journey for sure. There were a lot of ups and downs in that journey, but those ups and downs had nothing to do with the children. Not at all.
It's the system.
Yes.
The system is broken.
It's just the overall, like, when you take a step back and really start to let it soak in as to why these kids are in the position that they're in. It's heartbreaking, just to put it very lightly. It's heartbreaking. So we were very fortunate that we were able to navigate this path. And that now we can help become advocates for other families who may want to start their family in a society definition way, if you will, and do it however they feel is right for them. I think that love has no bounds. I feel like we have the power to choose because we are intelligent beings, and we can figure out what works best for us. And for my family, the foster to adopt process worked really well for us, especially as we still wanted to prioritize our careers. It was a really great choice for us to go with an older child to be able to still do that, to where we don't have to take away from what brings us joy in that realm of our lives as well. So, I understand that, my family, what works for us may not work for others. However, for us, it works. It really does. And it works very, very well. And all three of us are very happy that we went this route, and we were able to do this while still pursuing what brings us joy on the career front.
Having the self-awareness for that is phenomenal. It's, again, not something that we see a lot in people, and hopefully it becomes more common, but to have the self-awareness of, what you want, what's going to fulfill you as a woman, as a person, and being able to make the decisions, the best decisions for your life. I applaud you for doing it and for, sharing it, because hopefully it inspires somebody else to do something that maybe feels more right for them and their family. And that gives your daughter the best environment where she can thrive.
That's right.
And she's excelling. Yes.
Yes. She really is. And I like how you summarized that, Hilary, because, going through this journey, you have to block out a lot of noise. There's people that you don't really know who feel like they can give you their opinion. And you have to block that out. Right. And the thing is that, our child, is excelling. She's thriving. She's just an excellent student. She's an excellent human being. And it's one of those things that when you have structure, you have guidance, that's really encapsulated by love, understanding, and empathy, we can all do great things. All of us. I am here today as a successful leader, as, I think I might be a successful wife. We'll see. My husband's not here, so that's okay.
So far, so good.
No, but I'm here because, I had love, understanding, empathy, guidance, structure, all of those things. And when all of those things come together, whether it's in a professional environment, an interpersonal or social environment, we can thrive. And that's why, as a family, it's so important for us to choose what brings us joy and what makes us passionate when it comes to our careers. Because again, when we do that, we are bringing our best version of who we are into all of the spaces we are required to show up in. And I like that to rub off on my peers at work, the people who work for me, the people I work for. They deserve the best version of me, just like my family deserves that too. And I deserve the best version of me. And totally. So it's really a win-win-win scenario when you can really prioritize that and be fortunate enough to have a space where you can be authentic and you can truly be who you are and who you are meant to be. Not everybody has that. And I, encourage everybody who crosses my path to find that and to find those spaces. And sometimes it's easy to find. Sometimes it's very difficult to find because we don't all have that luxury. But when you do find it, it's magic.
Mm-hmm. Like a puzzle piece clicking. Were you always that way? Did you always kind of have that self-awareness, or was that something that you learned? Is that a therapy thing? Is that an education thing, an age thing? What was your path with self-awareness?
Yeah, I would say ever since I was pretty little, I was just insatiably curious. People intrigued me. And I was always attracted to differences, like people who were different, than me. I wanted to be their friend. And I think I get that from my dad, especially, and I think that that's just something that has always worked very, very well for me. In elementary school, junior high, high school, I didn't have the typical drama that, teenagers would find themselves in. I had a very eclectic set of friends. I always found myself trying to befriend the person who looked like they didn't really have many friends, because I just had empathy and I wanted them to see a smile, and because I just know how happy, I am. And I'm just very fortunate. And again, I know that comes from a place of privilege or luxury to be bubbly and to be happy. but I choose that. I really do. I really try to choose joy, and to navigate this life, because there's so much that can get us upset. So I think that because I've always been so insatiably curious, ever since I could remember, that's just that self-awareness is something that, I think I naturally had. However, I will say this, and this is very, very hard for a lot of folks, including me sometimes, is being receptive to feedback. That's how you really develop that self-awareness. So I always tell my teams, I always tell my family, I tell my friends, please tell me the truth, because you will always get the truth out of me. Even if you think it's not something that I want to hear, if I'm not aware, please make me aware, because these are my intentions. And if my intentions appear to stray from that, you need to tell me so that I have that self-awareness. So that is something that I have really tried to build into my life, to be very receptive to feedback. And I think that coupled with just some of my initial insatiable, curiosity has really helped me bolster that.
That's something incredible. Stay curious. I love that phrase. What is an additional piece of advice that you could give, if you could give young women today? What would that piece of advice be?
Do it anyway. Do it. Even if it's not perfect, put your name in the hat. If you see a job and you don't check all the boxes, put your name in the hat anyway. Apply anyway. If you're not sure about something, ask. Raise your hand. Chime in. It's important that you are heard and that you are seen. And it's important that you do it anyway, even if you don't check all of the boxes, because the worst that can happen is that you get a no or a non-response. But if you don't put your name in the hat, then there's your answer. It's automatic.
The worst thing that happens is you stay exactly where you are.
Exactly.
And you can't do that. It won't even be that, because you'll have the experience of asking. You'll have the experience of stepping forward.
That's right.
I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. And I would add to that, I try to live my life saying oops instead of what if.
Yes.
I've put myself out there, and yes, rejection is a part of that. I have been rejected many times for jobs that I just knew I was great for. That's a part of the process. And if you're getting comfortable, you got to get uncomfortable, because that's how you will grow. And don't forget that rejection is a part of the process. Failing forward and failing fast is a part of the process. Embrace that, learn from it, take it as a lesson learned, and embed that in the next time you try something. It's just so important that we don't give up, because the minute we start to get complacent or try to give up, someone will eat your lunch. Don't
literally eat your lunch.
And I would also say this: don't compete with your peers. Compete with who you were yesterday. It's really easy to compare yourself to others. It's very easy.
It's the thief of joy, though. It's the thief of joy.
It's really easy to go on Instagram and look at all of these lavish things and to compare yourself to that. It's hard not to, but really try not to do that. It's important that you celebrate your peers when they reach certain successes. Do that. Get in that practice. Even if you were competing, so to speak, for that same job, celebrate your peers, because you want people to celebrate you when you're winning. And I would just say, try really, really hard to continue to be collaborative, to be a team sport, to celebrate, and just comparing yourself only to you. Great things will happen when you do that. It really will, because you're going to be more focused on you and your growth and not somebody else's.
I think those are all very phenomenal points. And I thank you so much for your time, so much for your transparency. I'm so grateful that you were able to be here with us today. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do next. Do you have any big plans?
Oh, well, no, but I would like to get to space someday.
Yay.
But no, Hilary, I really appreciate you for having me on today. It's a true honor to get to share a little bit about me and to spread little nuggets for others. But thank you for everything that you are doing in this space. And thank you for giving other women and other people a platform. It's really incredible, the work that you are leading. So I do appreciate you, and thank you.
Thank you so much. I look forward to doing this again soon.
Absolutely.
A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their stories, wisdom, and breaking down barriers with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Your support means the world to me and helps spread the word about the amazing women paving the road less traveled in male-dominated industries. If you have suggestions for a future guest or topic you'd like me to explore, please reach out on social media. I'd love to hear from you. Follow me on your favorite social platform for updates and behind the scenes. Keep pushing boundaries, challenging norms, and lifting each other up.